Today is June 17th, 2018, Father's Day. And I'm here in Washington, D.C. Heard from all my kids today. Wish me a happy Father's Day. And I'm just thinking about my own father. He's passed away now, but all the things that my father did taught me and helped me in my life. And I just got to thinking this year, I graduated from high school 40 years ago. 40 years ago. Wow. I'm an old man. But I've got something that I want to share with my children, and I kind of feel like an old man expounding on his youth and things that he's learned, passing on to the next generation. And that's what I want to do with this video. As you go through life, you learn a lot of things. You have a lot of experiences. Some are good, some are bad. But hopefully all of us learn from the mistakes we made and bad decisions we made, and it's good if we can pass those on to our children and help them in their life. And this is one of those things I want to pass on to you. What I'm going to call this are the 4 principles to live your life by. The 4 principles to live your life by. Now, my dad taught me these principles growing up. He really taught these to me, and I've tried to teach these 4 principles to all my kids, and I want to encourage my children to teach these principles to their children, my grandchildren. It's very important. And in today's society, I just see the deterioration of the relationship between parents and children, and it's amazing to me what we're seeing in this next generation coming up. It's so much has changed in just the 40 years since I graduated high school. It's just hard for me to believe. But anyway, so the 4 principles to live your life by comes from 1 Peter 2:17. So I'm gonna use this Holman Christian Standard Bible that my sweet daughter, who works at Lifeway, bought for me. And I really like this version. It gives English some clarity on some of the difficult passages. But anyway, I'm going to read from this version, and then I'm also going to read from the New King James Version as well. So 1 Peter 2:17. There's 4 principles, and they're just 4 small statements, only a couple of words for each statement, but they mean so much. And you can base your entire life on these 4 principles, and you'll be amazed at how it will change your life and help you get through life if you'll just do these 4 things. So listen. 1 Peter 2:17. Honor everyone. That's number 1. Love the brothers and sisters. That's number 2. Fear God. That's number 3. Honor the emperor. Number 4. And that's it. That's the verse. Honor everyone. Love the brothers and sisters. Fear God. Honor the emperor. Now the New King James Version says it just slightly different. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king. All right. So let's just dive right into this, and let me make the points that I want to on each of these 4 principles. And I give you some real life examples of how it's changed my life. Honor all men. Honor everyone. Okay, what does honor mean? It has several meanings, but in this case, it means high respect or esteem for everyone. Honor all men. Honor all. Honor everyone. Wow. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Jesus said that. And that's a good principle. This one, I think, even takes it a step further. Treat everyone with high respect and esteem. You'll be surprised at what a difference it'll make in your life. It's not easy to do. As a child, I grew up in the 1960s. There were a lot of racial tension in the country. There were riots, protests. I remember as a young child in the probably 60, 65, 66, 67, watching TV on the news and seeing the civil rights protests, riots. There was a lot going on in the United States at that time. I was just starting elementary school, and in my school there was no segregation. That had already been eliminated. So when I got to school, there were black children, white children. We were all in the same class, and I had no idea what segregation was. I didn't experience it. So my generation was a little bit different than my dad's, and much different than my grandfather's. So I want to relate to you something that happened when I was probably about 6, 7, 8 years old. It was a conversation between my grandfather and my father, and my grandparents were visiting, and my dad and my grandpa, they were just talking. And me as a young boy, I loved my dad. I admired my dad. I loved my grandfather. So I just enjoyed watching them two talk, and I'd listen to them. And that's something I want to get to a little bit later. Children listening, okay? They don't interrupt. They don't run their mouth when adults are talking. You need to teach your children that. Okay, that's something I don't see today. People don't teach their kids that. I knew better than to open my mouth. I had to wait till there was a pause, and I couldn't interrupt. I remember sometimes I would just tap my dad or my mother to make sure it was okay for me to ask a question. But anyway, my grandfather and my dad, they were having this discussion, and it was concerning hiring black people at the railroad. My grandfather, he worked for the railroad. He started when he was in the 1920s, okay? Back then, certainly the railroad hired black people, but not for the same jobs that they hired white people for. Primarily, they were servant-type jobs, cooks, cleaners, heavy manual labor jobs, but not the good jobs. The white people got the good jobs. So that was the culture that my grandfather grew up in. Now, he didn't hate black people. There were some black people that he worked his whole life with on the railroad, and they thought the world of my grandfather. My grandfather thought the world of them. And so it wasn't a matter of hating or racial hatred or anything. It was just the culture that they grew up in, that they didn't really follow this verse right here, honor all men. Okay? Let me finish this story here. So my grandfather, they had just started hiring black people, equal employment. No discrimination based on race, color, sex, And so the railroad had started hiring black men to do the same jobs my grandfather was doing. Well, that was something new. He wasn't used to that. And so he was telling my dad. He says, Cooper, let me tell you what happened the other day. Says they hired this new young black man, and he was working with me, and I needed a tool, and I said this to him. I said, "Boy, hand me that wrench over there." Now, Cooper, you know what he said to me? And my dad says, "No, what did he say?" I couldn't believe it. He said, "If you want that wrench, you go get it yourself." Now, can you believe that? Now, my grandfather was expecting my dad to be surprised and agree with my grandfather that, wow, this is a shock. What's the world coming to? Black people think they're the same as whites. And my dad says, "Well, I tell you what, if you'd have called me, boy, and told me to go get the wrench, I'd have probably told you the same thing. Go get it yourself." And my grandfather, I remember, he just had a surprised, puzzled look on his face. He just kind of looked at my dad. And then I could see it finally sank in to my grandfather. You know what? Doing to others as you have them doing to you, you know? My grandfather wouldn't want somebody calling him, "Boy, go get that wrench." So I was really proud of my dad. But I was just a young boy. But I thought to myself, wow, my dad, you know, he really